because that just doesn't make sense, the nature of things. Welcome to the continuing series on progressivism, continuing our analysis of the article from the Center of American Progress titled The Progressive Intellectual Tradition in America. Progressivism as an intellectual movement emerged between 1890 and 1920 as a response to the multitude of problems associated with the industrialization of the U.S. economy, frequent economic depressions, political corruption, rising poverty, low wages, poor working conditions, tenement living, child labor, lack of collective bargaining, unsafe consumer products, and the misuse of natural resources. In this episode, we're going to focus on a specific section of the article that I just read to you. In this section, it tells us when the movement emerged onto the public and political landscapes. It states that a response to the multitude of problems associated with the industrialization of the U.S. economy. Now, poverty and low wages and poor working conditions, they existed before the Industrial Revolution. They exist today. They will exist under any form of government that you can imagine. They are not unique to capitalism or to America. They are part of human reality. During the Industrial Revolution, yes, we saw massive disruption, 60% illiteracy, widespread unemployment. Those numbers are real. But here's what else is real. Some people still found ways forward, not because the system was fair, not because opportunity knocked on their door, but because they understood something fundamental, that they had responsibilities. They had to work within the reality they were given, however limited that reality was. The question is not whether poverty existed. The question is, given the constraints you face, what are you going to do about it? The mindset is harder to find today because of social media, peer pressure, the constant messaging that says you're there because something is wrong with you. All of that clouds the real issue. And the real issue is that you have agency. You have choices within your constraints, and those choices matter. With that said, how should we move forward? I'm going to handle this topic as if I would know nothing at all about history, political effects, social patterns that tend to keep people in those types of conditions. So, how do we do that? We do that by breaking it down systematically. First thing I would do is separate the three topics into their own category and treat them as such. They may be tied together in the long run, but to deal with any ongoing reality, you must first take it back to its basics. How do we do that? You make a list of the realities of the subject and then break those realities down, and so forth. What you end up with are answers to questions you ask along the way. For example, what is the reality of your ability to work? And then answer the question. Your answer? I am physically healthy and able to perform labor at the bare minimum. So right here is your first answer. Now, what is good about the answer is before you go any further into your investigation, you know without doubt that you have that option. And what is also good is that it relieves the pressure so you can think more clearly and you can think more calmly. In other words, you can consider that as an option if no other options can be found. Follow that format process to its end. The unique thing about this topic today is that it requires an individual to examine themselves with honesty. What is your responsibility as a human for yourself? Unfortunately for the poor, the government, is not the answer to their problems. They are, and only they are. Back in the timeline that we are talking about here, half the country could not read or write, but they could breathe, they could think, they could eat, they could sleep, just like a person who can read and write. And that is what everybody needs to understand. Before you are poor, before you are rich, before you are a politician, before you are a teacher, etc., you are human. That is where it all starts, and that is where it all ends. What is the common denominator here? You. So figure you out and plan. Government is not the solution. You are. The Constitution was formed with the idea that man can govern himself. Those are the words that matter. Let me quote John F. Kennedy when he said, "Don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask yourself what you can do for your country." Those are great words, but I'm going to change them to say, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask yourself what you can do for you. Folks, it all starts with us and it all ends with us. Let those words sink in. We have to live under the law where we live. And those are the only concessions that we are bound to. But that is where it ends. Except for the law, you oversee yourself. If you can't find a job, it's probably because of you. Let me share a life experience in regards to this subject. I was a very good and competent worker. I had always put myself into situations where I would get promoted really fast. But I had no staying power. And once I felt like the company did not respect me or care about me any longer, I would move on with no notice. The way I looked at it is you would not be giving me a notice to fire me. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so to speak. But I had a family and I had bills to pay, just like everybody else. So I did what I'm asking you to do, and I took it back to the basics. I examined myself, asking, who am I as a man? I know I'm a hard worker and will do whatever it takes, but I can't work for someone I don't trust anymore or thinks they are better. So I made a decision that would only work for people, that I would only work for people as a contractor or a 1099. It changed everything. Now I only had one job and I'm the boss and my employer is my client. It worked and I never looked back. As this series progresses, my hopes are that you will take the time to just pull up some random story, whether it is current or historical, and read through it or listen to a newscast regarding it, or both, and break it down to the story itself. And ask yourself, does that narrative that you're being told hold water? I hope this episode was able to get you to say to yourself, maybe he's got something here. Or I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Either way, I do not care. I only care about you coming up with an answer that is based upon your own research and your own reasoning. And if you should be moved to, please comment regarding it and we can discuss it in another episode. I want to thank you all for watching and listening, and don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode, and I'll catch you on the next one.